Good morning to all. This presentation is a humble attempt to internalize the concept of education for total consciousness and to connect the idea with the various aspects of education and life in total. Because in this era, we have been thinking about global education for a long period of time, and this is a very crucial moment in the life of all the individuals in this world, because we are going through a very strenuous situation where our life itself is facing a total unsustainability. And in this context, we have to think about more effective strategies and techniques for making global education successful. As we see, global education is recognizing the interdependencies and interconnectedness on issues, regions, people, places, systems, and times. And it is infusing global issues such as sustainable development, environmental care, peace, and human rights into traditional subject areas and systems of education, and working towards active, responsible global citizenship towards building a more peaceful, just, and sustainable world. So, how can we develop this sustainability and peace and calm and happiness in the minds of people and oneness among the people all over the world, even though we have barriers of culture, language, economy, politics, everything. But we have to think of a global education. And there are so many challenges that we are facing in this context. So we have to develop a global perspective of education. And which are those global perspectives in terms of literacy, capability, development, education, studies, and other very crucial dimensions also. Everything has to be taken care of when we think of a global system of education. And this education for a global perspective, that was created as an approach to education that would incorporate within existing curriculum a global consciousness. Usually, when we think of education, we think of the knowledge, attitudes, values, and skills that has to be developed in each and every individual to contribute to a successful society in a very efficient manner. But here we add something more, that is a global consciousness and the knowledge, attitude, values, and skills necessary to help educators prepare our young people for effective participation in a world rapidly becoming interactive and interdependent. We know all over the world, we are connected with the help of technology. Every moment we are being aware of the changes that is happening in every nook and corner of the world. How to react to it, how to adjust with it, and how to adapt to the changing conditions. That is a major concern, and that should be the major concern of the emerging system of global education. And for that, we have to develop a global consciousness. That is education for all, because all over the world we have to go for a common system of education that is adjustable or that is accessible and moreover adaptable for all the communities. So which education system is the best? That is the major question that we face now, because the global education must be for all. And our father of the nation, great father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi has told, education is the basic tool for the development of consciousness and reconstitution of society. This reconstitution of society takes a pretty long period of time, but it was in olden days. But nowadays, every society is changing in a rapid manner with the development of industries, technology, innovations, everything. But about that, about this development and about these technological advancements, we have to develop a common consciousness, a total consciousness in the minds of people for the successful living in that changing world. So that development of consciousness must be the prime concern for the evolving educational systems. As we know, Jagadguru Swami Isha, His Holiness Jagadguru Swami Isha has developed this concept, and he is a great promoter of the concept of education for total consciousness. And in his view, consciousness is a sum total of everything that we see. That is from the individual to the world itself or the universe itself. A community or a reunion or a effective union between whatever is within the individual and whatever is present in the outside world. A balance between these two or integrating the knowledge about these two will be creating a higher level of consciousness in the minds of people, and they may be able to know one another, interact with one another, and live in successful manner in this changing world. So this consciousness must be developed. And how is it possible? How the education system can be helpful in developing this higher level of objective, that is higher level of an educational objectives in terms, that is the consciousness, that is total consciousness. And he says, what is the consciousness? That is the light that enables the individual to realize the ignorance, ego, intelligence, and the mind when he receives knowledge. The language that helps him to reach the status, Bodha Bhasha, the language of consciousness. So everybody has this language or this consciousness within himself. How to make it visible and how to make it successful for interacting with other people. So that is the aim of education. And everything present in the world outside is present within us. And the state of keeping them in harmony is the outcome of real education. This is the aim of education for total consciousness. So what should be the nature and strategies of real education? That we have to contemplate much on for achieving this objectives of higher level of consciousness, peace, and happiness. So this education for total consciousness, according to Swamiji, is a comprehensive exposition generating energy-based knowledge in all branches of learning intended to promote humanism and awareness of being one with the universe. And education must enlighten the individual, for knowledge is light. An attempt to regenerate education, integrating the external and internal knowledge. We know all the education system is focusing on the external knowledge, how to internalize it. But that internalization should happen within or happen with integrating the knowledge that is embedded in ourselves. As Gandhiji said, it's the education that is the emancipation of body, mind, and intellect. So this reunion of this external knowledge and internal knowledge, that should be the focus of education. And for that, we have to regenerate the system of education. And this external knowledge is the objective knowledge and internal knowledge is subjective knowledge. And the universe is the expression of external and internal realities. This expression must be the focus, and that should be fruitful for realizing the self and the consciousness. And this should be happen through an enlightened state of education, where the whole universe is created out of one vibration, the wholeness of energy. And that should be the prime concern or prime concept that we have to develop in the minds of people. Everything present in the external universe is present in the internal universe. Also, the vibration of each object varies according to its structure. That's the mere existence itself is being based on this vibrations. That is the external and this a combination of this external and internal universe. The basic principle steps to connect the external knowledge and internal knowledge. It helps to connect, and it is high time to move into a learning methodology based on this energy vibration. This, we know the law of conservation of energy. We have been hearing it and we have been learning it for ages. And but the wholeness of energy, that should be internalized, because energy, this compartmentalization of energy and knowledge as sometimes may not be sufficient enough to develop this idea of total consciousness. And the real education, as Swamiji has envisioned, that it should start from the right action and through intuition, emotions, and memory. That's the mind. The emancipation of mind, we may be able to develop the feeling of loveness or love through the interaction of energy and environment, and that will lead to achieving non-violence and peace. So this peace, calm, and happiness, that should be flourishing in the minds of people, and through which we can develop the concept of this total consciousness. That real education consists in the practical application of knowledge that enables the individual to balance the external knowledge and the internal knowledge. The realization that learner, the topic, teaching and learning is a single stream. Here the body, mind, intelligence, ego, and ignorance of the individual are the factors that lead into real knowledge. That is, a whole participation of each and every aspect of an individual is necessary for achieving this real knowledge and the real consciousness. This is a process that bestows through logical and scientific experiments the capability to observe relative truths in the right perspective and experience them in a relative manner. This developing this right perspectives is the duty of the teachers, the parents, and other members of the society. And the students must learn to experience them in a relative manner. They should understand the unity between the man and the universe, or the man and the environment. So this relativeness is sometimes we are lacking, or we are not able to develop the real sense of this relativeness in our education system. That is why we have to think about regenerating or reorienting the education system for developing this consciousness of for this relativeness. And for this, the knowledge is gained. How this knowledge is gained, and what is the process that should go on? It's a cyclic process that is involving the knower, the process of knowing, and the known. That everything should come together to achieve this total consciousness. And the essential, and for this, we have to think about a holistic system of education where the integration of both the integration of all levels of knowledge, or all levels of objectives, or all levels of changes that is in the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domains that we have to take care of. And the essential elements for this integral growth is a combination of, or a complementary approach in which we have to take care of all these aspects, that is corporal, emotional, cognitive, social, aesthetic, spiritual, and then we'll be able to develop a spirit of consciousness. And here we are talking about the total education in the global scenario, national education, national and even a global education policy for holistic development through the integration of subjective and objective knowledge, and a clear picture or visualization of the philosophy of the mind and cognitive concept of consciousness. Everything becomes a part and parcel of the theory of education for total consciousness. It's an educational approach that adds systematic development of higher states of consciousness of the school and university curriculum, because it is everything that is starting from the philosophy, it is moving on to the methodology of teaching, the curriculum, the student life, the education, nature of educational institutions, the student life, and the role of parents, teachers, and the life in home and society. Everything is a major concern, and ultimately moving towards lifelong learning is the major aspects of this knowledge or this approach of this education for total consciousness. It can be starting from the lower level to the higher levels of education. And the major aspect of this consciousness-based education is the major principle is knowledge is structured in consciousness. So students can discover the field of pure consciousness within themselves as the source of all knowledge, because they are having enough knowledge and skills from different faculties, because they are learning different subjects in different ages or different age levels. Everything they are capable of acquiring this knowledge from any source. And we have been, the compartmentalization of knowledge has made it effective for the students to achieve competency in a particular level, or in a particular faculty. As we know, the system as we see, students learn philosophy, linguistics, anthropology, neuroscience, artificial intelligence, psychology. So all these faculties or different disciplines are making them competent to acquire knowledge. But how to integrate this knowledge? That is a major concern to develop this consciousness. So at present, These invisible walls separate these topics, and each discipline is taught and learned as if it's absolute knowledge. So this misconception need to be changed, or it should be modified, as he is not able to realize the imperfection created within the walls, or he is not able to integrate this knowledge for a better living or for any activity that is performing in particular context. It's our scientific capabilities that will determine our ability to overcome challenges which lie ahead in areas. So we have to develop the complementary nature of all these faculties, all these subjects, all this knowledge to develop the concept of or the achieving this total consciousness. And for that, Swami has developed a theory that is he calls as an I theory, that is which is the visible world and the non-observable world, that is the consciousness and energy. A balance between this consciousness and energy, or the interconnectedness between these two. So, as Swami said, there are only two entities, the non vibrating, immeasurable reality and the vibrating, observable reality, that is consciousness and energy. So, energy planes are there, they are observable, but the consciousness, it is immeasurable and it is not observable. The I particle is the link between the two, the subject, and it is the first expression from non vibration to vibration. It is a building block of all matter. Once matter vibrates, time and space also come into existence. The duration between two fundamental vibrations is time, and the length between two fundamental particles is space. That is the interaction between the observable and non-observable reality. In between is the I particle, the object. How we have to make a balance between these two, or how we are able to internalize these concepts in a very perfect manner. That is the aim of education for total consciousness. Everything is created by the I particle, the basic unit of energy vibration. The entity of each object is determined by the specific rate of vibration, and the rate of vibration inside and outside have to be identified, and the negative vibration need to be brought into harmony. That is, there are positive and negative energy. How we can balance it will be visible in material interacting with matter, or how energy is transformed into matter. That matter is responsible for our existence itself. So this energy matter change or energy matter transformation, that will be helping us to have a union between the observable and the non-observable reality. And education must aim at providing the practical knowledge to achieve the state, that is minimizing the negative and also maximizing the positive. How is it possible? And this is a link, this theory, it's linked together subjective science with objective science, and acknowledge subjective experience in a quantifiable way, and draws parallels between the interactions in the outer universe and the innermost functioning of our body, mind, and identity. And achieving total knowledge, total awareness, and total happiness. That is the prime concern of this theory, focusing on education for total consciousness. And this consciousness is the all pervading, all knowing, and non vibrating reality. And this is a picturization of the I theory, that is how these two are interconnected, the I particle and the energy levels or energy planes that is forming the levels of consciousness. We have to realize that the individual is formed by the energy flow at varied levels. The reason why one individual is different from another is in the basic blending of energy levels. And we see, as the law of conservation energy says, the total energy for everything or one thing or one person is different from another. This energy level is determining the capability, capacity, or the ability to interact with the environment. So that is the same. This realization would help the individual to reach the basic factors that are responsible for this blending. And this theory, that is consciousness and energy, how these are related, and how matter forms or matter depends on this, is given by this division of matter as proposed by Swamiji, that is white matter, red matter, and black matter, moving from the positive to the negative. So we see there is a neutral phase from the white matter to the as moving through the black matter. So there are so many characteristics that we can see with respect to this classification or this concept of matter. Because white matter, it makes up 50% of the universe and also 50% of the I particles and 50% of our cells. It has the lowest frequency and longer wavelength, and therefore its transparency is the highest, allowing consciousness to shine through more. So he is connecting, so Swamiji is connecting the energy levels with matter, and through which the consciousness can be enhanced or it can be emancipated. And he says a person is dominated by white matter as the qualities of straightforwardness, honesty, cleanliness, clarity of thought, tolerance, kindness, modesty, peace, and happiness. So this is the level where if we are able to move much through this white matter, we may be able to achieve the level of peace and happiness, or this is the achieve the highest level of consciousness. And in subjective terms, we can call white matter the ego, and in objective terms, we can call it the identity. That is, we may be able to identify ourselves, and we have be able to develop that consciousness and to know or to focus on the identity of other people's. So the red matter makes up 30% of the universe. This is a neutral phase, and also makes up 30% of ourselves and 30% of the I particle. In the outer world, it is all the information or data, and in the individual, it is our intellect. That is in relation to the consciousness. The higher level of consciousness, through intellect, we will be moving to the consciousness. And a person who is dominated by red matter has the qualities of short-temperedness, competition, then tension and restless, because he is very active. Is every time he will be interacting with the environment, and he will be thinking, acting, and experiencing using his intellect. This red matter is responsible for activity and new creation. For the genesis of any creation is thought. The thought process will be making him to move through emotions and to practice successful actions for achieving the higher levels of objectives in life. And the black matter makes up 20% of the universe, self and I particle. It is the objective chemistry and the subjective emotions. The frequency is highest and the wavelength is shortest, meaning that the matter will be thickly packed and allow little consciousness to shine through. So it is the lower level of consciousness, and it is not allowing for logical thought or clear vision that will be affecting the activities of each and every individual. That will be deciding the identity of each and every individual. A person who is dominated by black matter has the qualities of laziness, ignorance, argumentativeness, and fault finding. So some negative may be dominated by the negative aspects of the human behavior. So this consciousness-based education describes in detail the quality of human awareness that spontaneously gives rise to human behavior. So this picturization or this explanation it gives, that is, we can start from this this behavior to the level of consciousness. How is it possible? That is through the consciousness-based education or the education for total consciousness. So this is a comprehensive picture given by Swamiji with regard to the education for total consciousness, that is the energy levels and energy planes where we can move from achieving this total consciousness. So this consciousness-based education is just plugging us all into the beautiful eternal field within, and then watching things get better, which is what happens. It's a feel of infinite, unbounded peace within every human being. And when you experience it, you live in that peace. So this consciousness-based education has been evolved through ages. And again, we have to think about it, because education is not simply giving us or transforming information. It should have, or it should develop the higher qualities in the life of each and every individual. That is developing the consciousness of life, peace, and happiness. So this education also fulfills the inadequacies of education by offering total knowledge to unfold the total mental potential of everyone. So that is the concern. It develop the total mental potential of each and every individual. And in the higher states of consciousness, when the full potential of the brain is being utilized, the fundamental field of nature's intelligence, that is transcendental consciousness, the unified field of nature's law, is fully enlivened in the individual consciousness. So man will be able to understand the complementary nature of man and the environment, or human nature with the changing environment. That education should lead to total knowledge to enable the students to live free from mistakes. Art and science of living with community must be learned by which involves system which involves inculcation of social, moral, and spiritual values. We need a system of education by which character is formed, strength of mind is increased, the intellect is expanded, by which one can stand on one's own feet. Really, it is the objective that we have been practicing in all levels of education, but we have to strengthen it because the changing world is demanding this in a very serious manner. And every person that must be competent, as Deleuze Commission has said, learning should be at four levels or the four pillars of education we have to focus on: learning to know, learning to do, learning to be, and learning to live together. So these two objectives, that is, these two pillars, need higher level of appreciation and higher level of practice in this context. And here we are thinking about raising the consciousness of these objectives. And let us conclude by closely studying the I particle and I theory. We are led to the definite knowledge that the internal and external worlds do not have a separate existence. I and the universe are ultimately the same. We are merely vibrating energy, vibrating consciousness. When that vibration ceases, when there is no I particle, there is no universe, and there is only total consciousness. And this consciousness is a bliss that we are all after, whether we know it or not, the unlimited, all-pervading happiness and awareness, a clear idea about our own entity and oneness of all things. Because the concept, the science itself is moving to this holistic view of nature itself. That is the biodynamics, unified field theory, their hypothesis, everything as taking this concept or propagating this concept rather than the different the division into different faculties or domains of knowledge. And science and society will be empowered with the knowledge, ethics, and vision to enter into a new era of true sustainability, the prime concern of everywhere in the world, that is sustainable life. And Jagadguru Swami Isha gives a new hope to education. His definition of learning as reconscientization of human beings through a better understanding of oneself is bound to create a new global society which treats the whole human community as one's own family. Because our system itself, our culture itself has energy with this concept pretty long back itself, that is Vasudhaiva Kudumbagam. That is, the world as a one unity. His new system of education is a bold and successful attempt to integrate determinism and humanism. This humanism is slowly deteriorating from the social life as we see now. But that should be a great attempt is needed to integrate determinism and humanism. With the implied message that every human being is born with 100% knowledge, which will help human beings to transform human societies and institutions into a world of love, peace, and happiness. And thus we see a social change is needed where every process is cyclic and everybody has a responsibility to act upon. And this is possible through blending of science and spirituality. One better way to move in this direction is blending science and spirituality. There's a belief that and desire in the society to as well as make fusion between science and spirituality to produce better quality scientists to serve the society and make free from wars, terrorism, and hatred. Let us be devoid of wars, maybe using bioweapons that we see now. Every society is under threat because the scientific inventions has made our own life unsustainable. That should not be the aim of education, and that should not be the focus of the life of future generation also. And ultimately marching towards making a peaceful society. That peaceful and sustainable society should be the aim of education for a better future. And let me conclude. The more you meditate, spend time in nature, raise your consciousness. So that is the one thing that we can do. And get in touch with the more spiritual side of life, the wholeness of life. The more highly refined and sensitive you will become to subtle energy. So this energy that we have, we have acquired, let us be making use of it for knowing the world in a better way, to develop the level of this total consciousness. So this theory and this principle is very much valid in this world. And let us pray for that, and let us do, or let us practice it for a successful life. Thank you.